3 true stories from people who were followed and lived to post about it. I thought he was just a low-level creep, but now I'm not so sure. For the last couple of years, I have been dealing with a creep who lives on my street. The street is a through road, and the creep lives about 1 block down on the other side of the street from me. It started with him trying to speak to me when I was walking my dogs. I walked around the corner of a building, and he was there in front of me. He seemed kind of awkward, and I said hi in response to his greeting and kept walking. But then he was at the same place the following morning. When he was there on the 3rd day, I realized that he wasn't walking, and we happened to see each other. He was waiting at that spot, so I decided to walk a bit earlier. That worked okay for about a week. Then he was there again. I adjusted my route to avoid that spot. Again, that lasted about a week. I turned into a side street around a high fence, and there he was. I again changed the timing of my walk, and he worked it out after about a week. I kept changing things up for the next few months, and periodically would see him when walking. About that time, I hurt my foot. While I was recovering, my husband was walking the dogs instead of me. Then I happened to be in the local supermarket on the weekend, and the creep was there. I keep seeing him as I'm walking around, and he queued up behind me at the register and tries talking to me. I got out of the store really fast while he was being checked out and left. Now, I should add that at this stage, the creep seemed to me to possibly have an intellectual disability, but I wasn't thinking creep back then. I felt sorry for him. He seemed lonely. I am now aware that my judgment is off as a result of childhood traumas, but back then just thought that I needed to avoid him. So I'm back walking, and I continue to change the times that I walk and my route. Occasionally, I would see him, but generally I managed to avoid him. My husband and I then moved out of our home for a few months because the roof needed replacing, and asbestos was found, which had to be removed. We lived with family during this time. I don't think the creep has a car because I rarely saw him during this period. When I did see him, it was outside the supermarket, elsewhere in town, or near my work. When we moved back home, several months went by before I saw him when I was walking. I thought that, thankfully, he had lost interest. Then, when I least expected it, he comes seemingly out of nowhere, and he's right in front of me. I can't cross the street at that point, and my only options are to keep walking and get past him, or to turn around and go back the way I came. Turning around with a dog on a lead can be tricky, so I just keep going. I don't make eye contact and move as fast as I can without running. As I'm passing, he says, "Good morning, sexy. How are you, gorgeous?" Although I wasn't confident the police would take me seriously, I went to the police. I am very grateful to the young officer who spoke to me. He acknowledged that up until that morning, when the creep called me sexy, it was a bit iffy whether they could have gotten a restraining order. But with that plus his past behaviors and my attempts to mitigate the situation, the police would apply for a court order to stop him. I only knew his first name and address, but they were able to work out his full name, and it was on my copy of the application paperwork. It has taken a few months, but he didn't contest the application, and the personal safety order has been made. He is not permitted to approach me or attempt to speak to me, and he is not to walk on the footpath past my house. He can walk on the other side of the street. Unfortunately, he has continued to walk past my house, and I sometimes see him when I am out walking, which I am noting and reporting to the police every time he does. But he has not spoken to me since the order was made. So all in all, a pretty low-level creep, right? Wrong. I was sorting through old paperwork at work the other day, as my office shreds and bins anything 7 years or older, unless we need to keep it longer. I found a note that the creep had come into my work 7 years earlier, giving a different address, and had spoken with me. Later, when I called him about his inquiry, he became inappropriate, that's what the note says, and was told the business would not be dealing with him anymore. Now I'm wondering if he moved to his current address, because it was just down the street from my house. This update is about a year overdue, but I was waiting to make sure. I hope updates are allowed on this sub. If not, I'll post to my profile, I guess. The creep doesn't live near me anymore, and I haven't seen him in just over a year. As I said in the original, the police obtained an order preventing him from approaching me. Despite the order, he continued to try to talk to me for several months. I would see him outside my work or at the supermarket from time to time, and I still had problems with him trying to walk near me when I walked my dog. I kept reporting it to the police. At first, each time it happened, and then later, going in every few weeks and updating. Nothing ever seemed to come of that, but maybe they did tell him to leave me alone, and he just ignored them like he was ignoring the court order. When this was going on, my husband mentioned to a couple of neighbors that the creep had been bothering me, and the police had obtained the order, and he was still being a pest. A few weeks later, after the gossip wheels had turned, we were told by one of those same neighbors that I wasn't the only woman in the neighborhood that he was creeping at. There were at least 2 others, but the others were like me originally, and didn't feel they had enough to go to the police about him. It was only after everyone started talking that we each realized we weren't the only ones. One of them has a disability and has to use a wheeled walker to get around. That would be so awful if he were doing to her what he did to me. She has even fewer options to escape from him. The gossip was that at least one of those other women complained about him to the police. It was about then that I stopped seeing him around. Then a for sale sign went up on the house he lived in. My husband walked past the house and looked in the windows. The order was still current at the time, so I was not supposed to go near his house because of that. There was no furniture or curtains that he could see through the front windows. That was about a year ago. I took the chance that I wouldn't need the order again, and let it lapse when the 2 years came up. I still haven't seen him near my house, my work, or the supermarket, and I am so relieved. I really hope the gossip is correct, and those other women went to the police, so that at least the police are aware that this is a pattern. Hopefully, he got the help he needed to change his behavior. I'm still in therapy for PTSD, but he wasn't the only contributor to that, so I don't know. But I am starting to feel okay again about walking at the same time every day, and not having to constantly change things up to hopefully not run into him. I, 24 female, think I'm being stalked, and I can't tell by how many people. I know the title sounds paranoid, but please bear with me. I work full-time at a public university in the US as an office manager, and am enrolled in grad school at the same institution. I graduate this May. I have in-person night classes 3 days a week that start right after I get off work. My apartment is on the first floor of a complex about 10 minutes away. Over the past few months, I've had numerous bizarre occurrences around my home and workplace. The first, to my knowledge, was in September, and was something my neighbor across the hall, a very sweet older woman, told me. A man was banging on my door for around an hour just after midnight. I was not home. My neighbor poked her head out to ask him what was going on, and he said he was a DoorDash driver with no food or bags in his hands, apparently. My neighbor watched him through the peephole and told me he tried the doorknob multiple times. No Ring camera or anything, so no footage. As far as I know, he didn't come back. But I've also had 3 or 4 instances over this several-month period where someone knocked on my bedroom window late at night, loud enough to wake my tiny dog and me. Never saw who it was. In October, a woman came to my sliding glass door about a month later, demanding to come in because her stolen device had apparently been pinging my apartment. When I refused, she called the sheriff's department. The deputy who came asked me a couple of questions and left, but did confirm that a device was pinging my apartment. Never found out if she meant a phone or what. The woman hung out in the parking lot before leaving a few minutes later. Obviously, I've never stolen a phone, so I was completely bewildered. Never saw her again. In December, things came to a head when I found a plug-in GPS tracker in the OBD port under my dashboard. Car dealership where it got serviced last said they didn't use that brand Land Air C. And yes, I have the model and serial hash and didn't perform any services that would have warranted putting it in there. I called the cops and they just wrote down a few details and left. University police were also informed since the tracker was probably placed either on campus or at my apartment. The tracker was the biggest red flag. I never check my OBD port, so I have no idea how long it was there. I told my unit director, and he offered to subtly remove mentions of me around the office and on the website, which I accepted. I am, however, posted up at the office front desk for like 80% of my day. This past Tuesday, right before I left for lunch, a middle-aged man came into the office wearing a hairnet, surgical mask, hoodie, and sunglasses. He claimed to be a prospective student and had questions about FAFSA. He was extremely hard to understand. I directed him to the financial aid office across campus, and he kept asking questions that our office cannot answer. I thought, sure, fine. Maybe harmless. He walks over to our coffee machine, not for communal use, by the way, but I didn't want to be a bitch and just starts making coffee. He's still there when I leave, and one of my staff members watches the desk while I'm out. When I return from lunch, he's gone, but walks in after me a few minutes later and just sits in the lobby on his phone before getting up to leave almost immediately. I was off work on Wednesday and Thursday, so I came in on Friday. I felt like giving my mostly undergrad staff a break, so I permitted them to head home early, inadvertently leaving me alone in the office. The man came back wearing the same clothes, mask, hairnet, and sunglasses within 5 minutes of the office clearing out. Our office is technically open to the public, but it isn't really public-facing, and he had no reason for being there, especially that late in the day. He came in, barely acknowledged me, and said he was going to bring back bottled water for our coffee machine. He left again. I'm very creeped out by this, so I messaged my director working remotely, and he got an IT guy from the adjacent building to come over with his laptop to keep me company. I explained the situation, and he said he'd stay with me till close. He settled in my director's office just around the corner, but it still looked like I was alone. The man does come back without water and leans against the desk, trying to start a conversation with me. The IT guy comes around the corner and stands between him and me, and he quickly changes the subject and asks about financial aid again for the 4th time in as many days before being directed away and leaving immediately. I'm strongly considering informing campus police about this. As I said, they already know about the tracker. I have had problems in the past during my undergrad years at a different institution with men and a woman being creepy towards me, but nothing to this level. I have no idea what to do. I can't tell what's isolated and what's connected. My family lives an hour away and has been no help at all. I have a sinking feeling that things are going to escalate. Any advice on what I should do or change at home, work, or elsewhere is appreciated. I'm open to further questions. A customer left me a weird note. Any advice is welcome because I am genuinely terrified. I work in a bookstore and I genuinely enjoy my job, but I'm scared to clock in tomorrow after this disturbing encounter. So, I was rearranging some stuff when one of my coworkers came up to me, saying this guy asked to borrow a pen and paper, and he gave her the creeps. I brushed it off, and after like 10 minutes, she was at the register, and I came up to her to chat. She gave me a serious look and said, "Go in the back now." "I'll tell you later," so I trusted her and went in the back, wondering what the hell happened. Minutes later, she goes in the back as well and says the creepy guy said he's in love with you and left you this. She handed me the paper he asked for with this eerie satanic-looking drawing, and I couldn't make up what the hell it is. And right below, he wrote some mostly illegible text with crosses and pentagrams. I could only make up something about him being in love with me and wanting to get to know me, and something about a specific belt with crosses that I do have, but wasn't wearing today. So obviously, he's been watching me on more occasions. Also, I could make up Queen in Flames and Te quiero para siempre. I don't live in a Spanish-speaking country, but most of it was pure gibberish and freaky drawings. He told my coworker he'll be back to ask for my phone number as well. At this point, I'm already shaking. We don't have security in my store, and I called my manager, who wasn't on shift. She says he most likely won't do anything else, and just go in the back if he comes in, and let my coworkers tell him I'm not interested. Obviously, I feel very unsafe. I'm considering asking to be moved to a different location, and more than anything, I'm angry. I'm aware this guy is unwell, and most likely he deals with some mental health issues, but I'm angry people get to do this creepy stuff and lie their head on their pillow at night while ruining things for me and leaving me anxious and terrified. The assistant manager is in today, and we looked at the footage together. The guy looks 40-ish and is very weirdly dressed. I'm 22. And he was speeding towards me as I went in the back, but I didn't notice him. He gave up trying to talk to me and went to my coworker to ask about me. She lied that my shift ended and I was going home, and he hung around the stockroom door waiting for me for like 10 minutes. I have no idea what he was planning to do. If any of these felt too close to home, you're not alone.